death is a job for life as an industry. Death is the one thing that seems to be job for life. When a person dies, someone has to claim that person, pay to bury that person, and take care of the remaining business around their passing. It's not a thankful task, for sure. But the people who take care of the business end of the burial are the funeral directors. Back in the Wild West, the coffin maker was often the local carpenter, and he would basically put on his black suit every time there was a showdown, and be carrying around his tape measure for the high noon duel. It wasn't big business in those days, but it paid. Nowadays, funeral directors are also responsible for dressing the person to prepare them for an open coffin funeral, if that is what is preferred by the family. Mass-produced boxes. It is almost sad to think that coffins are rarely produced on an individual basis these days, but manufactured on a mass scale. One could argue that while mass-produced items are far cheaper than one-offs, those reduced costs have not been transferred to the buyer, who still gets taken advantage of, despite their fragile emotional state. Of course, not everyone is that callous, and there are coffin manufacturers who can charge even less and give the customer a discount. Working in a funeral parlor is a job that requires a certain type of personality and constitution. It's not for the faint-hearted, shall we say. There are procedures involved with the preparations of the deceased person, and if you don't have the stomach for it, it's not the job for you. However, if you do have that kind of constitution and you are not squeamish about bodies and that sort of thing, you would definitely have a job for life. Individual boxes. Individual coffins are probably not that cheap in comparison to the mass-produced counterparts. But if you have the money and the inclination, you can certainly order your own personal style of coffin for that moment when it will be needed. In America, there is a strange federal law that is known as the funeral rule. It determines that a person who chooses to buy their casket or coffin from a different coffin manufacturer and not the chosen funeral home is perfectly at liberty to do so, and the funeral home must not refuse delivery. Of course, in the UK, there isn't that sort of free market, and most people tend to buy their coffins from the same funeral director they use for the entire proceedings. As in customary, working in a funeral home, it is probably an extremely solemn and sacred business. Being a funeral director, and most people respect the situation and the grieving family's right to mourn in their own way. Despite this, funeral directors have accrued a creepy image due to their portrayal in some books and TV shows. However, it isn't all morbidity and mortality, and it is well documented that death can also be the object of many sitcoms and many jokes too. One thing is for sure, and that is, working in such a place is definitely a calling and a job for life.